What up, this is Splash Wave? You're tuning to the Head Above Water channel. I have another video for you. I'm here talking about Hines Ward. Now, if you don't know who Hines Ward is, he is the half black, half Korean wide receiver that used to play for the Pittsburgh Steelers. He played 14 seasons, with the Steelers, won 2 Super Bowl rings. And one of those Super Bowls, he won MVP. And he was one out of 13 NFL players that have 1,000 or more career receptions in his career at the time when he retired. So I want to get into a story right here. It's very unique. And he was born in Seoul, South Korea in 1976. So I'm going to play this video and then I'm going to pause every now and then and chime in. Okay? So here we go.
The Pittsburgh Steelers are Super Bowl champions.
After he was named the MVP of Super Bowl 40, Hines Ward spoke of how he had always been an underdog.
Never in my wildest imagination would a kid out of Forest Park, Georgia, not too tall, not too fast, win the Super Bowl MVP. Speechless.
But when Ward came into this world, he was more than an underdog. He was an outcast. Ward was born in 1976 in Seoul, South Korea, to a Korean mother and an African-American father serving in the U.S. Army. In Korea, children of mixed ethnicity have long been pariahs, shunned by mainstream society. As a result, biracial Koreans are usually poorer and less well-educated than pure-blooded Koreans.
Let me pause right there. He said biracial Koreans in Korea are usually more poor and less educated. That is not true, okay? If you are a biracial Korean, it doesn't matter half black, half white or whatever, chances are your father, your mother is probably in the military, or they are an English teacher, or who knows, working for the American Chambers of Commerce in Korea. I don't know. But their salary is usually higher than the average monthly or yearly income that most Koreans make. Not saying all. I mean, there are, a lot of rich, Koreans in Korea, but I'm talking about the average monthly income. So saying somebody is, they're more poor, that makes no sense. Like that's not true, and they're less educated. Well, if they are biracial and the parents are still in their lives and they're making more than the average monthly or yearly income that other people are making in Korea, chances are they would be attending an international school. Okay, so let's continue.
The women who bear these children are also subjected to harsh intolerance.
When my mom walked out in Korea, people would call her names, spit on her. I mean, that's how bad, in Korea it is. My mom always described me, they treat people like dogs over there.
It's still a very pure-blooded culture, which goes way back in their history before the Korean War.
Janet Mincer runs an organization dedicated to alleviating the impact of discrimination in Korea and around the world.
It goes back to Confucian times, and then also the result of invasions of Japan, when there were mixed-blooded children, which they resented at the time. If you're not pure-blooded Korean, you face discrimination.
Okay, and that still goes on in other Asian countries as well. In Thailand, China, I've talked to many women, because usually, like, you never see the half black, half Asian male. I haven't ran into, usually I run into half black, half Asian women out here that grew up in some of these Asian countries, and I asked how were they treated, and they say a lot of times they were made fun of growing up. They never really they don't really know what it's like to be in a relationship with somebody. A lot of the men that did come around them just pretended that they wanted a relationship, had sex with them, and left. So nobody wanted to be their friend in school. I hear that a lot, so that still goes on to this day. Hines Ward was born in 1976, so I'm pretty sure it was much different, and it's gotten a little bit better now, but people still feel, biracial kids and adults still feel this discrimination out here. So let's continue.
Before Ward turned 2 years old, his parents relocated to Georgia, in large part because his mother wanted to escape the prejudices of Korea.
She knew the lifestyle that I would have would be harder in Korea rather than coming to the States and giving me an opportunity to have a better life. I could be one of those kids over there right now, not given opportunities, and I owe her everything for that.
Not long after they came to the U.S., Ward's parents divorced, and Hines eventually fell out of touch with his father. Throughout his childhood, Ward found himself an outsider.
Going to school, black kids teased me because I was Korean, so it was hard to try to fit in with black kids because they always made fun of my Korean side.
Now, by the time he got to school, it was probably the 80s, so it was much different back then. I know, some of the stories back then, so I believe him because, my mother, she's Panamanian, and she was made fun of growing up for being Panamanian, and I know some Haitians, older Haitians that were made fun of and beaten up and harmed because they were Haitian growing up in the 80s. So I believe him. Today, it's not really like that. When I was coming up in school, I knew biracial kids that were half black, half Asian, half black, half white, half black, half Hispanic, and they were never made fun of because they were mixed, and they were always accepted by black kids. So I believe him because he went to school in the 80s, but when I was coming up in the 90s and the early 2000s, I never saw that. All right, so let's continue. But like I said, I do believe him.
Trying to hang out with the Korean kids, they always teased me because I was black. Trying to hang out with white kids, they teased me because I was black and Korean.
The taunts and the knowledge that some of his mother's family had shunned both her and him instilled in Ward a resentment of Korea and his own Korean identity.
It was something I was ashamed of for a long time. I really didn't care for it. I really despised it. It was like, well, the hell with Korean people. They didn't accept me, they didn't accept my mom. I had that anger for the longest time.
First to Ward. Can he break a tackle? On the dive! Wow!
For an outcast in two worlds, the playing fields were a natural escape. During Ward's 4 years at Georgia and his 11 seasons with the Steelers, performance mattered more than ethnicity. In Super Bowl 40, he struck a blow against those who had mistreated him and his mother.
Touchdown, Pittsburgh! Hines Ward!
Before the 2005 season, Ward and his mother, who was unavailable to be interviewed for this story, made a plan to return to Seoul in the following offseason. Despite mixed feelings and trepidations, they hoped the trip would reconnect them with their roots. After Ward's MVP performance in Super Bowl 40 in February 2006, the trip took on a different dimension, as a nation that had once ostracized them now celebrated them.
I felt like a king. It was crazy. We get off the airplane and they got military guards and the media people, and everywhere we went, it was like I got media coverage here and stuff, but you remember the Tiger Woods when all the crowd was walking behind him? Well, multiply that times 10. That's how it was where we went. It was kind of crazy. Everywhere we went, it was an entourage of people.
Ward and his mother were treated like royalty, showered with gifts, lodged in presidential suites, praised in print and on TV.
So you see this When he was growing up, when he was just regular Hines Ward and born in 1976 in Seoul, South Korea with his mother, he was treated like garbage. Well, him and his mother was treated like garbage. Like he said in the beginning, people spitting on his mother, people were throwing garbage at his mother, people were calling her a dog. And you could only imagine how he would have been treated if he would have came up in the school system in Korea. So they needed to escape from that. But now that he is, Super Bowl MVP, he won two Super Bowl rings. He's 30 years old in 2006. He's 30 years old, and now they're praising him and they're worshiping him, acknowledging his Korean side. Like, hey, you won something for us, so we're gonna say, hey, this is a win for us. So it's like that Mike Jones song, back then y'all didn't want me, now I'm hot, you're all on me. Showering him with gifts. It's like we're only gonna acknowledge you because we felt like you won something for us, not because we genuinely accept you this whole entire time. If he would have never played football, you think if he were to go back as, let's say he'd have went to school in America for a little while, then he'd have went back to Korea and high school, do you think there would have been, well, of course they wouldn't have been treating him the same because, if he never got into football, they wouldn't have been treating him the same, but do you think they would have been treating him like, a normal person if he'd have went back in high school? I mean, this is, it's like when you do something for us, then we acknowledge you. But if he'd have, went back, let's say he'd have went there as an English teacher at the age he is now, and he never played football, do you think that, they would have chosen him to teach at some of these schools? Do you think they would have hired him for certain positions if you'd have went back home? More than likely, no. So let's continue.
There were elderly Korean people applauding me and my mom. For the elderly people in Korea to come out and applaud and say how much they really respect my mom and so proud of it.
How much they respect his mom. You hear that? They respected her so much that when she had him, they were spitting on her, beating her up, calling her names, throwing garbage at her. That was the respect she got. But now it's like, oh, you're Korean and you birthed this, this superstar, but you're Korean, you're one of us, now that's a big win for us. And it is what it is. Let's continue.
That was a good feeling for me deep down inside.
But Ward's trip to the nation of his birth was more than a homecoming. It was also a mission. While visiting with a group of biracial children like him, he announced that he would create a foundation dedicated to the advancement of Koreans of mixed.
So these are kids that, are biracial, they're not a football all-star. They're not an MVP. They're just regular kids trying to make it, trying to go to school. And he was on a mission to start a foundation to help support a lot of the mixed children that are in Korea. So he went there to do a good deed, and he did. Okay. I've been to Korea a couple of times. I've never looked into his organization or to his foundation, but, at least he went there for, a purpose of good intention. To, help out the children there because he was once in their shoes. Even though he left at 2, those kids could have been him. So, and he kind of feels and understands what they're going through.
Ethnicity.
People can accept me for who I am, being Korean, rather than what I am as a biracial athlete. Then I know there's hope for the biracial kids here in Korea. We can shed a light and help move forward in the future. That's why, we're starting up foundations, my mom and I, just to go back and help biracial kids because there might be a next Hines Award that's waiting in Korea, but they're never given the opportunity because of the way society views biracial kids over there.
Lots of guys on the teams, we have our charities, we have our things we like to reach out and do. And we're trying to affect a small group. And here's Hines, he's trying to help a couple thousand kids in an entire country sort of change its way of thinking.
In Seoul, word threw out the first pitch at a baseball game. He toured the royal palace. He was made an honorary citizen of the city in an emotional ceremony. Having finally been embraced by Korean society, he now embraced his own Korean heritage.
I used to be ashamed to say I was Korean. But today I just want to thank you guys because I apologize to you for being ashamed to say I was Korean.
What are you apologizing for? You didn't do anything. You didn't do anything. I guess he's doing that because of a PR move. Like, hey, I want to start this foundation. But he shedded a tear. So he was shedding tears on the podium there. So he was really in his feelings about that. So I think those were real. But if it was me, I wouldn't have apologized. It's like, I'd have probably gave the same speech as a PR move. But they made you an honorary citizen, and they're honoring you. And I don't know who this is. This person is probably, I don't know who he is, maybe a government official. I don't know, but he's wearing his jersey. So they're really showing you why they're honoring you as a citizen, giving you a plaque, showering you with gifts. Because if you were just regular Hines Ward, who was all about his, I'm not saying you weren't about your education, but if you were really about your education, going to school, you didn't focus on sports, they would have never made you an honorary citizen. Of course, they would acknowledge you as a football player if you went the other route, but they would have never made you a citizen. They would have still said, like, hey, you're not us. Now you're us because you won something, and your mother is us, even though we shitted on her back in the days, but you turned out to be something, so now we'll acknowledge you. Like, hey, we're sorry, this, that, and the third, but it's disingenuous. Like, is that really, do they really appreciate you? I'm not saying all. What I'm saying is it's not really a genuine, act of kindness. That's not being genuine. It's being disingenuous to honor you and give you citizenship when it's like you won something for them.
Those kids.
Jeremy Schaap reporting.
Okay, so I understand it was a PR move, but that was just pretty much to show you how biracial kids, or a biracial athlete was treated back in the day. And there are a lot of children today, to this very day, that still go through the same things he went through. And I've talked to, and like I said, the majority of them are women, young girls that are being treated like that. So I hope things, get better in the future. I hope that we can move forward and we don't have to judge each other by race in every country, not just America, but everywhere. I think, people don't deserve to be treated like they are just because of their skin color. And then when you ask, well, why? Like, what is your reasoning for treating this person this way? And they don't really come up with, a logical answer. They always give like a convoluted excuse, so, I think that's a good thing that he started his foundation and he's helping kids. Whenever I see a biracial child out here in Asia, I reach out to them and I always, let them know, and I ask questions on, like how are they doing and how are they being treated. And I let them know, like, hey, I just give them words of encouragement. That's really all I could do. So this is Splash, Head Above Water channel. I'm over and I'm out. Like and subscribe, share the video. Peace.